Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Some of you may have seen the video last week of Hank when it had a coolant blowout on the highway on the way to the Central Keystone E-Meet. Well, that has led to a long journey here at Element DIY, and we're contemplating a lot of different ways to move forward. So let me go ahead and cue you in a little bit as to what's been going on. Well, we're all back home safe and sound, and it is time to dig into them to see what's going on. So, I was obviously hoping for like a blown hose or something like that to let the coolant escape, but couldn't find anything obvious, and so I started to fill it up with some coolant, and you can see where the leak is coming from up there. But then that brought me to this. So yeah, that's a rod through the block. You know, I'll be spending the next few days trying to figure out what I'm gonna do moving forward, if I want to replace the engine in Hank or whatever. But it's a tough one to take. Hank was obviously my first Element and the reason I fell in love with the cars, and the one that I've used for just about everything. So yeah, I'll be looking financially at my options over the next few days and what's available out there for timing, and try to get us back on our feet. So keep moving forward. Thanks everybody for all the support. So after sleeping on things, it was time for me to start reaching out to the community to find out the best ways to move forward. So reached out to my friend David, Classic Automotives down in North Carolina.
That way went right at me in the exhaust. Yeah, yesterday was the blur. I had someone drive here 4.5 hours. So they left their house at 3 a.m., got here at 7:30, didn't stop, one tank of gas, an Element that's doing pretty good for the distance they went. And so that I could get it to the alignment shop by 1:30. Because I did basically a whole front end rebuild and new struts, new tire ride-ins, new ball joints. It's a laundry list I did on that car.
And by the way, that's a pretty nice looking grill you got there behind you.
You know, it really is. I had somebody ask me, is that say Toyota? And I'm like, no, it actually says Honda in kanji. And you know, I had this great guy, Jason at Element DIY, do the grill up for me. And yeah, I get asked a lot, what does that mean? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's cool that you're asking me. It's Honda. You know, it's not allowed to use the word that I just said in a business name, but the kanji is perfectly legal.
Yeah,
and copyright kanji. But I do love how we're both dancing around the subject at hand, that Hank overheated. So, I mean, is that all that happened? It overheated, or is there more to it?
well,
I saw the video that you were headed to Keystone.
Yeah,
and there was smoke and, you know, like a bunch of steam and water everywhere.
At first, actually, I thought I had a blown tire on the trailer. Got off real quick, and like you saw in the video, there was steam everywhere. And again, I thought it was a hose. I was being super optimistic about it. Hung around for about an hour and a half, waited for the tow truck driver to get there. And he took the car home. I was lucky. I was actually pretty close to my mom's house. So my mom came by and got the dog and I, because I was concerned about the dog in the tow truck or the dog in the Element on top of the flatbed.
Right,
so,
going nuts, probably. Yeah.
So my mom came and got me, and we came back down here to the house, and then he showed up about a half an hour later. And it was a real frustrating day because I had just gotten back from a real long trip, had spent 2 days packing the trailer, getting it all ready to go to Keystone, hoping to be able to have a good time and relax a little bit while I was there. And I checked the levels before I got on the road. You know, I checked coolant, checked oil, checked transmission fluid, all that stuff. So wasn't too concerned about it. So just let the car sit. I'm just going to let it sit. I'm not looking at it today. I don't want to know what's going on, but I remained optimistic.
Right. Well, you had me spooked when it said you went back home. I was like, must be bad. Like, how many miles on that motor?
253.
But you got a lot of road miles. There's a lot of
load miles on it. So he's been loaded down a lot.
Yeah.
He overheated right after I first got him in 2021 and actually blew a head gasket. And so I got the head gasket replaced at that point. Should have gone for a new engine probably, but
well, that is a common problem if you blow a head gasket and it fills the cylinders with coolant. Then when it tries to compress the coolant, it puts. I've heard mechanics say it ages the bearings by thousands of miles, 20 to 40 to 50,000 miles, maybe more, just because of the load that trying to compress liquid instead of gas. But it's really cool that you got 3 more years out of it.
Well, I was pretty excited looking at it, the number of years, the number of miles I got out of it, but I don't want to let it go. I'm still want to keep the car. I want to get it running again. And so I picked up Hank just kind of on a whim. Like I'd always looked at the Elements, but Hank was the first car I ever bought just because I wanted to buy a car. Every other car I bought in my life, like I needed a car. The car broke down. Let's go get another one.
Right, yeah.
That's always how I've been. That's always how I've been with automobiles. But this one, like I had a perfectly functioning car, and I saw it sitting at the dealership on a Sunday, so they're closed on Sundays. I waited till Tuesday and gave them a call and asked. I said, "Hey, that Element you got sitting out front, how much you guys want for that?" They said, "Well, we already got an offer on that one, but this was our asking price. I can't remember what it was." Well, I called back a day or two later, and they had sold it. They had an offer on it, and they sold it, but they sold it to somebody who turned Hank in as a trade. So I bought Hank. Hank was sitting there. So I went through, car looked good. I'd never been an Element owner, and I'd never been on the Element forums. I didn't even know that the Element world existed, right?
You didn't know what P2646 was.
I didn't know what it was, I'd had Hondas pretty much all my life, and I'd never experienced that one yet.
Right, yeah. Everybody else gets the free pass on that one.
Yeah. And so I got it, and one of the first trips I took was down to the beach. This is awesome. And I got an invite to go out to Colorado. So I drove out to Colorado, spent like 3 days at this event with some friends, and they all came back out here to the East Coast. And I ended up staying out in Colorado for 2 weeks. No camping set up. I was just sleeping on a sleeping bag and a camp mat on the ground. I had a camping kitchen with me because we had been camping during our event while they were there. And I just fell in love with it. Like did Moab, did Rocky Mountain National Park, just all these great places, Arches. And I'm like, dude, there's something that can really be done with this car. Let's go ahead and start pushing the limits. And so I started working on builds, and I put solar on it. And then just tweaking around. I'd been off of Facebook for years because it had just started to annoy me. And then started looking around on Facebook, and oh my God, there's all these groups out here. I'm not the first one who's ever tried this. So started getting ideas and building into it. And he's fully built out now. I've got the solar system. There's batteries down where the spare tire goes. There's a solar shower up on the roof. Gang switches all up in the front for different lighting setups. The swivel seat on the passenger side. So there's not just a lot of money invested in them, but the time to put all that in and figure it out. So
well, and it sounds like the miles too. I mean, as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, man, you got history with this thing. So, I mean, that begs the question: what are you going to do with it? I mean, you gonna find a motor and put in it, or?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. Like, what's the best place to get a motor and someone to do it? because I've talked about doing it myself, but it would be a brand new thing for me.
Right, right. Well, and an element is not a horrible thing. I think my favorite part of an element is when you pull the K-frame out of it, steering rack stays in the car. That's usually a detractor for most people because the thought of disconnecting a steering rack and pinion and letting it down, power steering fluid going everywhere, you got to realign the steering wheel. That's a pain. Element's not so bad on that, but as far as options go, I mean, you got the junkyard option because the Cord and CRB motors fit. Element motors obviously fit. But the junkyard, I mean, they're going to give you a warranty, but you don't know what you're going to get. You just kind of look at it and roll the dice. I worked in salvage for a long time, so I kind of understand how to look at them. You got the JDM option. You could buy a K24A. I just did one of those in the shop a few weeks ago. But then again, sometimes that's a roll because, yes, it is a Japanese motor, but someone there used it. We don't know how often they change their oil.
Mm-hmm.
I rebuilt a bunch of them. In fact, in the shop here, I built a bunch of race car engines. There's a turbo Civic wagon sitting right over there.
Oh, yeah.
That makes about 420 horsepower at the wheels, turbo dual can CC. So I built a bunch of engines. You could rebuild it, but I mean, for what you're doing with it, you're just looking for longevity. I mean, the JDM motor is probably the best bet. Where did Hank come from? You bought it in PA or is it a northern car?
Yeah, it's been in Pennsylvania its whole life. So it came from a PA trade-in, and I've been driving.
Like Eastern PA or Western PA?
Western.
Oh, well, Western's better than Eastern because Eastern they borrow from New Jersey, so you get that kind of brine they put on the road. Okay. Western might. I'm wondering about rust, how the rust is under.
Yeah, I know. It's hard for me to even think about that right now. I still got to get under and check that out. I know I got to be logical about this, but I'm still in the emotional stage where I want to do everything I can to keep it.
Right.
But the rust is an issue. The rust, up here, it just happens. We're used to having nuts and bolts that don't come out real easy. We're used to transmission work taking days instead of hours. So we get used to that. The rear lower control arms, those have been pretty good. I've been keeping an eye on them. Every few months I'll pop under there and take a look at them, but it would be worth definitely getting underneath and getting a real good inspection of it.
When I look on Facebook and I see the ones in like New York State that are for sale, you see where the rust has crept up into the back doors. And it's like, oh yeah. So the rust started low and then came high. It doesn't start in the middle of the door and go down. That's not how that works. It starts low and creeps up. That can be the death nail in an element, so let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
So engine, let's go back to that engine because that is something that is fixed. When we do that here, like I said, I did a JDM one the other week for David Joyce, and I've done quite a few engine swaps in elements. It's not a big deal. When it's not a gazillion degrees, it's literally a day and a half affair. Yeah, they're not an awful swap. Not even really hard to do as a DIY if you understand the concepts of it. But if you were thinking of doing it in PA, there's just certain things you got to pay attention to that you want to get right.
Well, I would just put you on Zoom. Just put the camera up in the corner of the shop.
All right. Now take these folds here.
And you can just sit there and watch me do it.
Yeah. Predictive. I can be the predictive, not artificial intelligence, but predictive intelligence. You're going to need 312 millimeters over there. You're going to need to take those out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully that's, it'd be a learning experience for me. It would be something that I've never done before, and I'm always into gaining new knowledge. But on the other hand, I kind of need to get this thing back up and rolling again because it's a centerpiece to my day-to-day. It's a centerpiece to my business. It's how I get to meets. It's how I haul my gear and all that type of stuff. And so, you say it's something you'd be able to do if I were to be able to get the car down there to you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. If we can get the car here, sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's I mean, you'd probably have to camp out or get a motel or whatever. But I mean, if you were helping, it's a couple day affair and it would be done.
Okay.
Because I have everything on hand that's needed. I got a good Honda dealership here. I mean, most of the well, I say most, 90% of the parts that I use are Honda parts. I stock a lot of them here in the shop just so that I have them on hand. Fluids, even the seals, valve cover, gaskets, rear mains, front mains. I stock most of that here just so I don't have to go to the dealer.
Yeah.
Because we do so many of them. But you said the shrapnel was more towards the front, right? Towards the so just make sure it didn't do anything to the transmission or the radiator. Make sure there's no collateral damage. That rod, when it came out, didn't sling stuff and break other things. I mean, the only things that really hit is the intake manifold, starter, and maybe it could have, something shot out, hit the radiator and hit the bell house. Probably wouldn't break that though, but I would check around it, make sure that nothing else is broken. And then, I mean, we can price some engines out if you want to look at engines. I know the JD MK24As normally run between $700 and $900 to get one with a warranty. You can check the salvage yards. I can check that information and get back to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So we can see what the labor would be to, put an engine in it and, put you want to replace some seals in them too, because you don't want to, it's a couple of seals you don't want to trust. You don't want to trust the rear main seal. Just literally have to pull either the transmission or the engine back out, put a rear main seal in it. So there's a few things we'd replace. So I can factor all that in, kind of get you an idea. If you come here, help me put it in, sort of what it would cost with the engine and what kind of warranty you'd be looking at. I think they do like a 90-day, maybe they do a 6-month or something.
Yeah. Well, let's start down that path, and I'll give Hank a good look over, make sure there's nothing else going on with him, make sure we're not throwing good money after bad. But like I said, he's the flagship for the business. We've been through a lot together. I want to keep him on the road.
Right. Well, I knew Hank at Elements on the Dragon when I saw a shower pipe on the top. I was like, oh, that must be Hank right there.
Yeah. It was great meeting you there, man. You were doing good work that day, too, with all the soldering of the clusters. You were busy. I don't think you had more than 20 minutes.
All I did was clusters.
Yeah.
I rode the Dragon Friday morning before I came to the campground, and I never left the campground until Sunday night.
Yeah.
And I went home. And that was it. And it was a great time. I'm not decrying it. I had a great time because I got to talk to a ton of people, and I got to walk around some, but yeah, most of it was cluster repair. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anybody is listening or watching and they want to get in touch with you, like they have questions about anything we've talked about, what's the best way for them to do that?
Either Instagram or Facebook, Classic Automotive NC, all one word.
Okay.
Classic Automotive NC. But yeah, that's the easiest way. I respond to messages on there. I'm glad to help. And that is something, I get questions all the time. And I'm very open to answering questions. If I have experience that can help somebody who's doing DIY, just like the guy yesterday with the transmission, then now won't go in reverse. We had an hour-long conversation back and forth trying to get figured out, what had happened. And I think we got it figured out now. He's going to have another trans. But
well, great, David. Well, let's get some work done before it gets too hot today. It's only in the 71 here right now, so I'm going to get out and start poking around underneath the Hank and see what we find.
Okay. Well, let me know. Shoot me some pictures, and I'm praying for good things.
As informative as David was, I still have a lot of unanswered questions. So tomorrow, Karen's coming over. We're going to poke around underneath the Hank and see what we find. Big thanks to David for taking the time to talk to me today, and I'm looking forward to where this journey leads me. Thanks for joining us.